Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Japanese Shabaru podcast. We are starting off today with Secrets of the Silent Witch, episode 2. So, I think this one was probably a bit of a step up from the last week's episode because it does involve a lot of Monica and just her trying to get through her first day at this academy that she is supposed to attend under a false alias, and it really shines a part of her that we've known from the last episode, and it really tries for us to get to understand how she's really trying to break free of her shell. So so episode starts off with her and the princess just kind of like going over about what's going to happen once they're there, and how she is going to do everything in her power to make sure Monica has a good stay at this academy, while also not necessarily getting him not necessarily getting her identity be revealed as well. So she pretended to be this ugly step sibling that abuses her and makes fun of her, just so Monica could have her own private space, because she didn't want to share a room. Obviously, she's still going through a lot of trying to break out of her own anxiety and her own shyness. So this was a good way for this princess to help her and have her own free space where she can actually try to do things on her own, and they take things slow as her days continue. But she kind of has this memory of her and her father, and how her father was also very into uh, numbers and maths. And one of her this like really early memories is of her and her father just kind of giving her this measuring tape, which she was like playing with it fully, like measuring everything, taking numbers of everything. So you already start to see kind of like how much she loves numbers, and as if it wasn't evident enough from the first episode where her entire cabin has a bunch of numbers written all over. So, and we also get explained, not explained, but it's given a hint as to why she has so many numbers in her cabin. But um, while this is happening of her trying to get this room, though, the student council kind of has comes into inquiry of somebody stealing funds from them, or from a specific budget that they allocated for something else. And one of the proper student councils is framed or was an accomplice to somebody stealing this money from them. So they when they confront this person, Aaron, I believe was his name, they they pretty much get nothing out of him because for some reason his memory is clogged up, which we kind of get a hint as to why that is later on, or what it could possibly be later on in the episode. And they are not buying that he doesn't know who it is, and that he was the only one involved. So they're kind of trying to use him as bait for the other guy eventually, I'm assuming. And then they take him away. Monica just gets in there, tries to figure out a way to get to the prince, or to find a way to get to the prince, because she needs to know who the prince is in order to protect him, because that's her initial goal, or her initial job that she was requested by Lewis. And and even though she was the one requested, she noticed how the princess that she paired up with to go in this mission, she has a lot of acting skills. So to her, it was more so like, man, this princess is more suited for this spy work than I ever will be. So kind of wants she really wants to get out of it, but at the same time she's afraid of what Lewis is gonna do. So and plus she it seems like she wants to be useful to people, so she can't really reject them. So there's a lot of things working for her. But when they have her be properly introduced to the class, or like have her introduced to the class, the teacher tries to get her to like give her greetings, and she just freezes up, like can barely speak, just kind of like whispering a bit, and then just completely silent. And the the teacher doesn't really quite get what's happening at first, so he's like, this is a prestigious school, like we have a very high standard, so like you need to like properly introduce yourself so we know what's what's happening. Uns and then once again she just like completely freezes up. I think it's a lot. This really just shows how she is in an uncomfortable situation right now. She feels kind of trapped. She doesn't know how to get out. So instead of like trying to confront it and trying to put her best foot forward, she just kind of freezes up. And yeah, like the teacher eventually notices, okay, well, this isn't gonna work out. So sends her away, and lo and behold, she meets like the first person who this she's probably gonna get close to in the story, which is Colette, who randomly decides to like just go near her, try to ask her like, be a good person, good neighboring classmate, and asks her about her hair and if she's ever done it some other way or why is it only like that. And she says that that's the only hair she knows how to do, or like the only thing she has practice to do. And Colette decides to ask her if she can do her hair, and does her in a other way that she wasn't accustomed to before. And even though Colette was putting up this nice, not putting up, but she did this nice deed of like trying to help her overcome her anxiety, trying to give her confidence by changing her look into something like more, more newer, more fresh. The other people that are in the class were kind of mocking her a bit, like, "Oh, look at her, she's hanging out with uh, Rick Rack, and she obviously feels like she's up so much better than her. She's only doing it to appease her own self." So there's already like back background talk about her and how she wants to always feel superior to everybody. So it's really something that probably is going to keep getting delved into in this as the series continues. So I'm looking forward to really diving deeper into Colette. And after that encounter with Colette, Monica decides, okay, well, I need to go eat something, and then she tries to make her way to the garden where supposedly there's nobody there. So she wanted to find a nice quiet place away from everybody, away from having to deal with people, uh having to talk to anybody or be made fun of by anybody. So she eventually finds this nice spot, but she notices there's somebody already there, and it was none other than the second prince that she's supposed to protect. But because she found them, they had already laid out a trap for the person that's supposedly with cahoots with Aaron about stealing the budget. So they kind of like grab her, thinking she's part of she's with them, or even more so part of an assassin group. Which eventually, the prince kind of lets him know, like, hey, listen, she's probably harmless, and just let her go. And at one point, somebody drops a this pod, and it was gonna land straight on Monica. So the prince tries to cover for her, and Monica ends up covering for the prince. Obviously, the prince doesn't notice that she used magic because she didn't incantate anything. And they have this really nice moment, some like this not intimate but kind of like cute moment that in other like romance series would be like, oh, this is one of those moments. But instead of being that, Monica just passes out and faints. So that really triggered a lot of her anxiety, probably went through the roof. And instead of like holding it in, her body just completely shut down. So it was made to be funny, but also it's kind of like, okay, well, this is really crippling her a lot. And it's probably something that throughout this series and throughout her time in this academy is gonna be pushed forward more, and it's gonna make her become uh, more talkative and break out of her shell. Hopefully, it doesn't mean that she's gonna lose her ability to do magic without incantation. But there, then afterwards, we have like a mini like flashback that Monica is dreaming up of how her one of her stepfather or like her uncle or somebody that was raising her earlier on before she became a mage, how he felt that her father had put this put her in his care, and it was more of a baggage, and that's probably what I'm assuming has caused her to have such anxiety, because this this figure that was raising her did not appreciate having to deal with her, having to feed her, or bet or anything of that sort. So that's probably why she closed her emotions in, and why she can no longer really talk to people, because the only time she's actually talked to some other people after her father passed away, and having to deal with that grief, it just like com- completely ruined any way of her to communicate with anybody. And even like after she wakes up, and she goes back with Nero, her cat familiar, uh, they kind of like were talking about it, and how like she could just erase memories with some mind magecraft on herself, and she pointed out that if you do that, it could really mess you up. Like, and so it's not really recommended to perform it on yourself or perform it on anybody else, which I think is what happened with the Aaron in the earlier episode, where he tried to remember the person's face that he helped or that told him to do this stealing from the budget, but he couldn't remember. This was probably due to the fact that somebody performed magecraft on his mind. And while Nero was there trying to like help her kind of get rid or get better at handling being around people by transforming into somebody, he noticed there was like a shady person outside, which Monica was like, yes, yes, it is kind of shady. And she's like, oh, but I sort of like know him. And we get into later on like how she tried to, in the next day, she tried to do her hair in the same way that Colette did it, but she was having difficulty. She's like, I never really thought about uh, hair being such an important part. Like, this is new to me that I actually want to do this. So it just goes to show that at some point she kind of gave up on her looks, just kind of like threw it off, and just focused on fully becoming a mage. And it was also because her anxiety, like obviously she wasn't going to be around people, so she didn't feel the need to like really do her hair or do her makeup, any of that sort. But now that Colette is kind of like slowly opening her up to like this option, she wanted to kind of throw herself in there, try to figure out what was the best option and how to replicate what she did with her hair. So she went up and asked Colette like, "Hey, can you show me how to do that again?" And also like she thanked her for like doing her hair the previous times. And this is where we kind of like she kind of like, well, where Colette kind of like felt kind of pushed her away in a bit. And then Monica had to kind of like point out that she has she has insecurities of herself, right? She doesn't feel feels extreme shyness and extreme anxieties while being around people, while having to talk to people or talk in front of people. And this is where we learned that Colette is actually also has some insecurities of herself, and how like whenever she talks, she feels like people find her boring. And this kind of brings up a nice thing to bond over, where Monica also says, well, I'm in the same way, where when I talk about numbers, people find me boring as well. And this is kind of like a nice sharing of like, yeah, we may be like different, but we do have some similarities, and it doesn't always have to. Our differences don't always have to push us apart. So I like that they were finally able to like spend a bit more time, and she did her hair again, and then she was escorted to where the prince was, where they start trying, where she kind of lets them know, listen, why were you outside at night without supervision? And the prince kind of played it off like, yeah, that wasn't me. But then she started getting into this whole rant about how these numbers kind of aligned with all his measurements, and it was just rambling about a bunch of numbers. Where eventually the prince was like, okay, well, I'm doing this because I'm trying to find this assassin person that's trying to kill me. So if you can do that, if you think you can do that, I won't go out at night anymore. And now Monica has accepted even more work on top of what she already has. And yeah, I really like this one. Really starting to open up to Monica. Really diving. Hope we dive more into her backstory later on, or as this series progresses, and see her get closer to people. So I like it. 8 out of 10 for me.